Hello, everyone. It's Saturday. I have to remember what day it was. It's Saturday. It's Chat with Mac. We're glad to have you. And for those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome to our little podcast, if you will. And yeah, welcome, Nadeem. How is your Saturday, sir?
Oh, it's great. Nothing like a customer call early in the morning to wake you up and get the blood going. No, it's all good. We got everything figured out. It was a customer with a few locations that they had some phone system issues, so we had to figure it out. But yeah, it's been good. Been busy this morning, but business has been just great this last few months, and I don't know why. I'm wondering if it's like pent up demand since through the pandemic that was kind of getting pent up, and that's kind of catching up to us now, or what it is. But there's so many projects going on. There's just so much. I mean, I'm having a hard time keeping up with everything that's going on. I can't.
It's a good problem, though.
It's a good problem to have. The thing is, I'm having a hard time keeping up with just estimates and I mean, but we'll get things done. It's not like we're still well within the industry norms, and I always like to keep a track of what happens in the industry and where we stand within the industry standards. But yeah, so it's new projects. It's just all kinds of stuff going on right now. Onboarding new customers. I mean, just net new customers, and
yeah,
it's, I guess with the economy opening up and people going back to work, it's just people are, or I think it may be more of people have accepted. The pandemic brought in some change, and people have now accepted it, and they're like, okay, we just got to live with this new norm, and we still have to do business, and so now all that is kind of opening up. So it's a good thing to have, because the way we were going back, I mean, we really didn't slow down. I mean, we have seen steady increase over since the pandemic started. But now we're seeing bigger projects opening up. Like bigger jobs opening up where people had put a hold on certain things. Now they're opening up. So that's good. So what are we going to talk about today, Mac?
So, kind of tying into what you've been talking about as far as the pandemic, we've talked about it. If you've looked for our audience, if you've looked at our videos within especially the last month or 2 months, you've seen that we've been talking a lot about breaches. You can't escape it. It's been happening on an exponential level. Kind of what Nadeem said was going to happen at the very beginning of this year. And so one of the things that we want to talk about now, compliance. Now, I remember, was it last year where you were really harping on that, insurance, compliance, having a plan, contingency plan. You were really trying to beat that message down, especially for small businesses. And unfortunately, it went on deaf ears to the detriment of a lot of small businesses. Now they're finding out like, oh, maybe we needed this. So now, there's this data privacy legislation that has been floating around and talking about that's been talked about, and maybe you can give us a little bit of insight on how that will affect the small businesses.
So I think it kind of started it started kind of with GDPR, right? And that's in the European Union. So it kind of started with that. Usually when it comes to consumer protection, for some reason, the Europeans are a little ahead of us. So it's a good thing in a way because we kind of get a heads up on what's about to happen here. So we kind of got that idea of, okay, it's probably going to happen. And the problem now is, even if the feds don't do anything, if the federal government doesn't do anything, individual states are putting requirements in place around security. But having said that, I think it's only a matter of time until the federal government steps in, because some of these breaches we've had in the recent past have been kind of big, well-known targets and targets that directly impact how people live here. I mean, it impacts everybody's life. Yep. So I think the thing is, these rules are going to get made either by states or by the federal government. And it all started with GDPR. Now, I think in the small business space, a lot of businesses think that they're too small. It's kind of like, when we talk about breaches, and I mean, this was, back when we first started talking about security and implementing better security policies, the main thing that I used to hear from other business owners was like, but we're so small. Why would anybody want to target us? We're not a target. Nobody's going to target. Nobody cares.
Constantly.
And it was like we had to kind of explain that as long as you have a computer on the internet, it's a target. It doesn't matter how small you are. It doesn't matter how big you are, because if nothing else, it's a stepping stone for them. So they're gonna get into your machine, and then from your machine, they're gonna attack other better known targets, so that when people come tracing back where the attack came from, they get to your machine, but then they can't get anywhere else. So that's, if all else fails. But however, most machines connected to the internet have some sort of benefit for the bad guys. They have some kind of information that the bad guys can use. Most of them out there. Now, having said that, now we're seeing the same thing kind of flowing into the security requirements, and smaller businesses saying, "Oh, but we're too small. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to enforce these laws on us." But they're coming. I mean, there are, like California Consumer Privacy Act, that got signed into law. And the thing is, that was just the start. They are now, a lot of these laws are kind of modeled after GDPR. It's to protect the consumers. And it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're doing business with these markets, you have to comply with that law. So, for example, we sitting in the U.S. can say, okay, well, no, GDPR, that's over the pond. It doesn't apply to us. It's just over there. Well, that's not the case. If you are doing business with anybody, a European Union or a European citizen, a European Union is a citizen of one of the countries in the Union, then you have to comply with the GDPR laws. So you have to safeguard that person's information. There are a few things that you can do as a small business to put things in place to minimize your risk. It's the bottom line is, you want to, if you go by the assume breach principle, then you will automatically not want to retain certain specific individual information. It's and I'll give this example. Back in the day when pretty much everybody had Exchange, in-house Exchange servers. I remember I was talking to one of the business owners, and we were implementing a new Exchange server, and he said, "Hey, I wanna retain everything. I wanna retain everything forever. I don't want anything to be deleted." And so I sat with him and I kind of explained to him, look, if your policy states that you are going to hold on to all information and never get rid of it, then you can be subpoenaed to get that information to court if there ever is a case involving that information. So you can be compelled by a court to, show that information because your policy states you hold it forever. So soon as I said that, the owner's eyes kind of lit up, and he said, I don't want to keep any information. And I was like, hold on. It's like, you can't just swing from left all the way to the right. There's a happy middle ground. So we need to assess what information you want to, you need to keep. What you need to keep, we should keep. What you don't need to keep, get rid of it, and write that down in the policy. So in this case, in this customer's case, we did something a little different. So basically, in the policy, we stated we're only going to hold, I think, if I recall correctly, that we're only going to hold 1 year, retain 1 year worth of information. But then the system was actually retaining 3 year worth of information and then discarding it after that. So we had some, cushion there. So even though the policy said we're only going to keep 1 year, so by law we can only be compelled to show that 1 year worth of information. The system was still holding a little more, but that was just some buffer there. But anyway, that's a whole different thing. But the thing is, it doesn't matter if you're big or small. These requirements apply to everybody. If you're doing business in this world with certain people in certain areas, and if that law applies to that person, then you need to comply. As a company, you need to comply with that. And if you don't, there are consequences. I mean, there are things that it's not just something that is just written down somewhere, and there's not going to be a consequence if you don't follow these rules. That these requirements have to be followed, or there are business impacts, and that's what a lot of small business owners don't realize, is that they have to comply with these requirements, and these requirements are there for a reason. And don't collect information that you don't need to be collecting. Right. It's like back in the day, I remember, people used to process credit cards, and they would just like write down credit card. I forget which business it was. It was like a retail operation, and they were actually writing down these credit card numbers because some of the orders were placed over the phone, and they were writing down these credit card numbers. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And at that time, it wasn't a big deal. And now it's like a huge deal. It's like you can't be writing down on a piece of paper that you're going to, discard after you process that card, and it's going to end up in the trash, and somebody's going to retrieve it. And, they're going to use that credit card now. I mean, that's how credit card fraud occurs. I mean, so the thing is, every business out there needs to have logical policies and follow all the rules that not only that is within their region, but that applies to people they do business with. And that's the difference is, so if it's somebody who's a citizen of UK, let's say, and if I do business with them, then I have to comply with the GDPR rules and regulations. So that's, that's what it comes down to. And nobody's exempt. I mean, small or big, it doesn't matter. You have to comply with this. And I think, it's at the end of the day, you can't say, oh, I didn't know, or, it's ignorance is not an excuse. It doesn't work in the court. You can't say, oh, I didn't know the speed limit was 55. That doesn't work. But everybody needs to kind of figure out who their customers are, what kind of information they're keeping, and keep the minimum amount of information that you need to keep. Don't keep, all this extra info that you don't need to be keeping. And that's the bottom line is, it's this information that the bad guys are after. If you're holding a lot of information that you don't need to be keeping, then you're a bigger target. You're a better target for the bad guys. That's what it boils down to, right?
Yeah.
So, awesome. So other than that, the good news is I used to have, my main credit card compromised like at least once a year, like around Christmas time. I think the bad guys are really in overdrive at that time. But this last year, I was fine. Didn't have any issue. So, wow. Hey, I got that going for me. So the thing is, any small business out there, they need to do an assessment, figure out if the amount of information they're keeping is really what they need to keep to do business. If it's anything extra that you don't need to keep, don't keep it. Get rid of it, discard it, don't keep it. I've seen so many companies get into trouble for keeping information that they shouldn't be keeping.
Well, there it is. I mean, especially now, with the amount, like we said at the beginning, with all these breaches now. I mean, I was telling you about a guy I spoke with yesterday, no, this week, that, got hit for a small business, got hit for a significant amount. You have to wonder if these businesses, and I don't know, maybe Nadeem can answer this, if they actually have a plan in place to respond to security incidents. I'm willing to bet they don't, but I think that's an essential thing to have, just, okay, well, how do we respond if this happens? And yeah.
So, here's the bottom line, like, I know there's a lot of companies who don't have a disaster recovery plan. You need to have one. I know a lot of companies that don't have a security plan. You need to have one.
Yeah.
These things are only getting started. I mean, this is just, if you get on the train now, you'll be well ahead of the game. There's going to be a lot of other easier targets for the bad guys to attack if you already have a good policy in place for everything. So business, it's a lower business cost if you can proactively do something as opposed to trying to do it reactively. Same thing applies in security. It's a much lower cost to protect yourself ahead of time as opposed to trying to recover after a breach has happened. It just is. I mean, with anything in business, that's how it works. So if you can do a few things, like that pipeline deal, I remember there was a conversation with our MSP group, and there was a company that had actually done an analysis how much over the last 10 years it would have cost that pipeline company to protect their systems versus what they had to go through after the breach had occurred. And the cost over 10 years was a fraction of what they had to go through just that one breach. But the thing is, when business owners are making these kind of decisions, they're like so focused on one side of the equation that they're forgetting the other side of the equation.
Yeah.
And that's why we try to bring that up in conversations and educate people that, hey, I know this is, for example, hey, I know your business is making brake pads for vehicles, but hey, this issue you still need to address and have a policy around. If this happens, what are you going to do? That policy needs to be, everybody who is involved in that process needs to know what that policy is, what to do. I mean, like when we develop a disaster recovery policy for a company, we always state, what are the steps that people are going to take? The critical people, how are they going to get connected? How is business going to keep operating during a disaster? Like a lot of customers will already have a reservation at, for a conference room at a hotel or someplace. So it's all written down in the policy, hey, this is the primary backup location. You're going to go here and this is how you're going to connect. And if that primary backup location is not available, we have a secondary backup location and this is what you're going to do. Or some companies will just say, hey, you need to go and work at a public access point. This is how you're going to connect. If you're there, this is how you're going to conduct business. So if a person is processing orders, we want them to be processing orders even if there is a disaster. But, if it's a non-business critical thing, then a lot of that kind of staff, they don't have to go through those things. But the critical staff, they still have to be operational no matter if it's a disaster or not. Same thing, you have to have a policy around security. What do you do when, so, and here's why. So if I'm some guy working at a computer, let's say I'm in accounting and something weird happens and I see stuff happening on my computer, what's my first reaction? Oh, I'm gonna try to stop it. I'm gonna try to clean it up. That email came in. Oh, that email was the one that started it. I'm gonna delete that email before it does any more damage. But that's the wrong thing to do.
No.
like that example I give of a law firm where the lady got infected, which was one of the attorney assistants, and she got infected, and she tried to Google and clean up the stuff herself. This was one of the first ransomware attacks, I think, in Texas. But anyway, so she tried to clean it up herself, and in the process, she ended up cleaning off the encryption key that was essential for them to pay the ransom and get that data back. So now she had painted herself in a corner where even if they had paid the ransom, there was no getting that data back. The key was gone. She had removed the key that was needed, that was necessary to decrypt the data. So the bottom line is we need to educate users that, hey, if something happens, this is what you need to do. Don't start Googling and trying to clean up stuff. This is our process. You call this number, you talk to so-and-so. He's our security officer. This is the person you talk to. And it doesn't have to be a dedicated person. Like I know at a lot of places, it's a person who might be like a CFO or in accounting or, somewhere like, maybe even a VP who is the security person. So if something happens, you call this number and you talk to so-and-so, and that's what our process is. And then we don't try to clean up stuff ourselves because users are not the professionals who deal with this on a day-to-day basis. We need to get some professionals in there who do this every day to make sure that not only is the equipment saved, the data saved, but also if there is an impact down the line, like, let's say a year from that day, there's some kind of an impact where maybe the business gets sued by another customer of theirs and they have to file for insurance. Is the insurance going to pay? If you follow the rules, the insurance is going to pay. But if you didn't follow the rules, the insurance is not going to pay. They're going to be like, oh no, we need to do a forensic analysis. And oh, by the way, you've already destroyed all the forensic data there. What are we going to do forensic analysis on? And that's the thing. You need to have these things planned ahead of time. Have a policy written down. Core people in the company should know what that policy is, and they should be able to talk to, the department heads should be able to talk to their departments, their users. Hey, if something like this happens, this is what we do. We don't try to scramble and try to figure out what to do at that point when the water is quickly rising above our heads. We have a plan to do what we need to do, and that's what you want to do. You want to have a plan in place.
There it is.
Yep. So, and if customers out there or people out there, it doesn't matter if they're customers or not. If anybody needs help out there, hey, let me say this: we don't charge for email. Email us, ask us. We can point you in the right direction. The worst case is we'll say no, we can't help you, and that's it. So, but I think we'll call it a day at that. I mean, it's Saturday. It's nice out. The sun's out.
Sun is beaming. My Lord.
It's kind of hot out there.
It's hot.
But yeah. So, everybody. I hope nobody has a breach, but the stats are that pretty much everybody out there, in some way, shape, or form, is going to have some kind of a breach. That's just the world we live in. Yeah. So be prepared for it ahead of time. Don't try to scramble after the water is, past your head, and then it's too late, and then you cause more problems in a quick effort to fix things. You end up causing more problems. So don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
So, Mac, awesome. I think we'll call it at that. Everybody, hopefully everybody has a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
We'll see you guys. Have a good one.